Welcome back, everyone. I'm Rich Curtis with eXp Realty, and today we're going to go over 11 things that you should know before moving to El Dorado County or the greater Placerville area. Now look, these aren't good or bad, pro or con. They're just 11 things that you ought to know. And very often when we have people relocating here, we have them coming from not rural areas, either suburban areas or urban city areas. And there's a lot of things that are specific to living in a rural area that you don't know coming in. So I want to go over those for you so you know what you're getting yourself into. Now let's get right into these 11 things. First on the list, propane. Might sound a little funny, but if you live in a city or even in a suburb, you probably have dealt with natural gas. We just don't have natural gas up here. Natural gas stops at the county line. So the only way to have gas appliances up here, so that's, your furnace, your water heater, your gas stove, those sorts of things, the only way to do that is via a propane tank in the backyard. Now, a lot of people just aren't used to dealing with this. Now, you can either own your propane tank or you can rent it. If you own it, you purchase it, you have it installed and hooked up, and then all the maintenance and safety checks are up to you. That's kind of a negative because you have to take care of it. But the positive is you can shop around and get the cheapest propane rate from any company you want to fill it when it's time to fill. Now, if you rent the tank, the positive is you pay them like $60 a year. They come out, they drop the tank, they leak check it, they check the whole system, and it's all on them. And if anything goes wrong, it's on them to fix it. The negative is you're locked in with that company and their rates. Whatever they're charging for propane at the time you need a fill, that's what you're getting. Now you can either be on demand or you can be on a regular fill-up schedule. Now for years I went on demand because I wanted to use all the propane in my tank and then fill it when it was empty. But the truth is, running a business, having kids, I would just get too busy. I'd get to the point where it was a Saturday, it's freezing cold outside and we're running out of propane. And now I gotta pay them to come out and do an emergency fill if I can even get anybody to do it. And I'm paying extra and it was this big stressful thing. So eventually I just went on the automatic route. So when your tank gets down to about 35%, they come out, automatically top it off. They monitor it remotely and they just take care of it and leave a bill on the door. That works great for our family. But if you want to, really shop around and, use every last drop of gas in the tank before you fill it, then maybe owning the tank rather than renting it is the way to go for you. But either way, you're not going to have natural gas here. Now, the other thing about propane is it's more expensive than natural gas. So to fill, my 250 gallon propane tank costs anywhere from $400 to $700, depending on quite how low it is and on the rates, whether it's summer rates or winter rates, because of course, propane costs more in the winter. So that's something to know. I tend to fill my tank about 3 times a year. So I spend $1,500 to $1,800 a year in propane. That's my cost. Now your mileage may vary depending on what you like to do with the thermostat. I have a really high electric bill in the summer because I don't like being hot. I will crank that air conditioning. I don't mind being cold. I like to sleep cold, so we don't run the heat as much. So our propane bills might be less than other people. Again, your mileage may vary, but you should ballpark in the neighborhood of $1,500 a year minimum for propane bills if you're on a house with propane up here. Now look, by the end of this video, you should have a good idea of what it's like to live, eat, work, sleep, play in El Dorado County, the greater Placerville area, in a rural community. If you still have questions after that, feel free to reach out. I get calls every day from people just like you looking to relocate up here, and I'm always happy to answer your questions. All right, number 2, wells. Something else you probably don't deal with. Probably where you're coming from, you're on city water. Now we do have city water here in a lot of communities, but the vast majority of the county is on well. There's a lot to know about wells. I could do a whole video on wells, but what I'll say right now is wells are free water, that's the pro, and the con is you have to take care of them. The other con can be if they're a low producing well. So everybody has lots of opinions on this. The county requires a gallon a minute or more for the well to be a legal well for a family of 4, 1 gallon per minute. In actuality, living in a home with a 1 gallon per minute well as a family of 4 would be a nightmare. You would probably be running out of water on a regular basis. And if you had any kind of party or everybody over for Christmas or Thanksgiving, you would definitely have shortages. So Usually anyone who's got less than a 5-gallon minute well is gonna have some kind of storage tank, 2,000 gallons, whatever, big storage tank in the yard. So the well slowly fills that and you have a couple thousand gallons on demand. Now, if you're new construction, of course, and you're on well, they're gonna require you to have a storage tank to run like fire suppression sprinklers and all this other stuff by code. But if you're an older home and we pull up to a house and you see a storage tank in the yard, that's usually an indication that it's a lower producing well. So in my opinion, I like the wells to be 5 gallons a minute or more. And if they're less than that, definitely want to see a storage tank present. Well pumps last a good long time. When they go out, they can be thousands of dollars. So you do have a cost there when they go out. You also should be checking the well regularly, not for production, not for gallons per minute, but for potability, because things can happen. Well can get skunked and you can have a contaminated well. Contaminated well is not that big of a deal. It's an easy fix. They come out, they chlorinate the well, they kill whatever's in it, and you're back off to the races. All of you watching this in a city somewhere, you're drinking chlorinated water anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, but you do need to know. Now, what usually happens is people buy the house, they test the well, it's got potable water when they bought it, and they never test it again until they sell it. But you really should test your well once a year just for potability. It's cheap. Take a small sample, get it tested, and then if you just need to treat your well. The other issues with well water can be, some hardness and some other things. So depending on the makeup of the water in your well, you may want to rent or purchase a filtration and softening system, which again, we can do a whole nother video on that. But those are just some things to think about if you've never dealt with a well before. The plus of wells, again, free water, and usually the water tastes amazing. If you've spent your life drinking chlorinated and treated water in a city somewhere, well water tastes awesome. You're gonna love it. All right, number 3, septic systems. So we talked about water coming into the house. Now we gotta talk about stuff going out of the house. Most of you are coming from a place where there's a city sewer. What goes out is dealt with by the city, and if there's any problems or breaks in the line or whatever, it's on the city. That is not the case up here. Up here, if you're not in a downtown area, you're gonna probably be on a septic system. So all of the wastewater from the house is gonna go into a tank where it'll sit for some time. The solids will dissolve, it'll all turn into liquids. The liquid will go into some pipes underground and then trickle out into the ground and be filtered by the ground. That's how it's all supposed to work if everything's working well. What's doing the job of breaking things down in the tank is bacteria and microorganisms. So one of the challenges we have when people come up from the city is learning the right cleaning products to use so you don't kill all the good bacteria in your septic tank and get yourself an overflow, which is not fun. So, we had a client come up one time and she worked from home and she was just obsessive about cleaning the house. And she cleaned with bleach all the time. And it only took her like a week or two to have gotten so much bleach down the drain that she absolutely nuked her septic system and the whole thing backed up on her just because she didn't know, she didn't get it. So it's really important to use septic safe cleaning products. There's a whole section on the Dorado County website on that, tons of websites on that. And then a little bit of the care and feeding of your septic. There are products you can flush down the toilet to encourage that bacteria to grow to make it work better. Things like brewer's yeast, or you can buy fancy commercial products. That's a brief primer on septics. If you've never dealt with a septic before, we'll get you a septic inspection and we'll get the inspector to walk you through everything you need to know. And again, there's lots of web resources, but you just gotta know coming in, it's a little different than what you're used to. All right, number 4, daycare is impacted up here. We just don't have enough daycares. And a lot of the daycares are done sort of through the preschool system. So if you have young kids and you're gonna be moving here, you may wanna try to get on a daycare list early in your search process, because it may take you 6 months to get into the one that you want. So you're gonna wanna start early, research the daycares, pick the one that works best for your child. There's a lot of options from Montessori to Waldorf to just standard daycares, a lot of options for you. But all of them, or most of them, if they're any good at all, are gonna have a waiting list. So you're gonna wanna start early on daycare for those parents out there. All right, number 5, the heat. I've talked about this in other videos. It's a dry heat, but people think we're a little mountain town at 2,000 foot elevation. It's not gonna be hot, and that's just not true. June, July, and August, it gets pretty hot. We can have triple digits for 2-3 weeks in a row. And so you just learn that, and you learn to, do anything really active early in the day, and then plan your middle of the day around being around water. But it is good to know You don't think of moving to a mountain town that's going to be hot, and it does get hot here in the summers. All right, number 6, water bills. So if you're not on a well and you are in the town, our water bills can be pretty high. It's not unusual to be $250, $300 every 2 months for a family of 4 on a water bill here. Water costs a fair bit because we had to sort of subsidize the cost of getting some new infrastructure. The good news is we have some really great new infrastructure for our water systems, but the bad news is the water costs a little bit much. So if you're sensitive to your monthly bills, you may want to choose a house that is on well and septic rather than one in town that's on city water and sewer. So something to consider. Water may cost a little bit more than you're used to depending on where you're coming from. All right, healthcare. It is pretty impacted as well up here, especially the pediatricians. But any of the healthcare, to establish a new general practitioner doc up here could take you some time. So that's something you're gonna wanna start early as well, especially if you're someone who is dealing with a lot of medical problems or has some chronic medical problems where you need regular care, you need regular prescriptions. You're gonna wanna start on that early, have a plan in place, get in the queue to get on with a doctor up here early on in your search so that by the time you're actually feet on the ground in El Dorado County or in Placerville, you've got a doctor you can go to and get your needs covered. We have great healthcare up here, but we've been experiencing a lot of growth. A lot of people moving into the area during the pandemic, had a ton of people move into the area. It slowed a little bit from there, but we're still experiencing consistent growth. And that's putting some pressure on the healthcare system. So you just have to plan accordingly, start a little bit early. All right, number 8, wildlife. Okay, so this one is one, that's dangerous to talk about because you can really scare the pants off people. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm out here ducking bears and mountain lions and fending off rattlesnakes just to get to my front door every day. It's nothing like that. I mean, I've lived here since 1997. I've encountered 2 mountain lions, and a few bears. Most of the time I'm in a vehicle when I see them. It's not that big of a deal. So we're not talking about big scary animals that are coming to get you, but we are talking about wildlife being an everyday part of your life. And if you're not used to that, it's not just birds and squirrels like you have in the city and in the burbs. We have real wildlife that you have to deal with out here. And it's something you need to learn a little bit about. So deer, we have a ton of deer. They don't really have very many natural predators here except the mountain lions, so we're kind of overrun with deer. And unfortunately, that means it gets thinned out a lot by vehicle, which is dangerous for you and your family. So when you're traveling on the roads here, especially at night, you really got to keep your eyes on the sides of the roads. Most people aren't running around with big steel bumpers or things, so hitting a full-size deer total your car and can injure and hurt your family. So you want to keep your eyes out for the deer. You want to slow down and let them cross if you see them, and you may even want to consider getting deer whistles. There's these little tiny things that you put on the bumper of your car as the wind goes through them. It makes a noise that we can't hear but the deer can, and people say they keep the deer from jumping out in front of them. But deer strikes and deer jumping in front of your car is a real thing up here that you need to look out for. Bears, okay? We've got bears up here. We've only got black bears. There's no grizzly bears in California. Last one was killed in like 1929. So when your buddy sees the brown bear with the big hump on its back, that is a black bear that has seen too much sun and is leaning down to eat something. We don't have grizzlies, you don't have to worry about that. Black bear aren't particularly dangerous to humans, but they do mess up your garbage. They are a pain in the hind end. So if you live in a rural area, you're gonna have to think about how to keep your garbage cans secured. You might have to build an enclosure for them, a locking enclosure. You might have to put a metal lid on it. You're gonna have to learn from your neighbors what's worked for them. But in some of our communities, my brother lived out in Pilot Hill for a long time and he had an epic battle with the bears over his garbage. So it's something to think about. Raccoons. These guys, they're cute and they're fuzzy, but they're actually nasty little critters. They steal things and they can really hurt your household pets. So you gotta be careful about raccoons around the house. I was building a deck here with a stainless steel aircraft railing on my deck, which is great. When you stand back, it kind of disappears and you can just see the trees. Feels like we're living in a tree house. That's what I love about it. Those little stainless steel fittings were expensive though. And while I was building it, I had little boxes of them laid out on the deck where they were gonna go. And sure enough, in the middle of the night, I hear clanking and there's these raccoons out there grabbing those fittings out of those boxes because they like shiny things and stealing them. They even went so far as to grab them and try to unscrew them from my deck railing and run off with them. So again, Nobody's gonna die here, but they're a pain in the butt, and it's something you gotta learn. If you do a lot of outdoor entertaining, a lot of eating outside, just gotta be diligent about cleaning up so that the animals don't get the sense that your place is where they wanna come for food. Now we do have rattlesnakes up here. In fact, we even have areas, there's a road in the county called Rattlesnake Bar. Now, over the years, I've encountered a lot of rattlesnakes. Even had one, a little baby one, coiled up under my trash can one night when I used to live in a little rural place called Lotus up here. I've never been bitten, and thankfully, my dogs have never been bitten. But a lot of our friends' dogs have been bitten. So something to know if you have pets up here is you can get a rattlesnake vaccine for them. It's like a 2-shot deal. You got to do it twice a year. Usually you do it as you're ramping up to springtime when you're going to go out and get on the trails with your dogs. But if you're moving up here, you're going to want to get in touch with a local vet up here, get networked in, and get your dog a rattlesnake vaccine. It'll get enough anti-venom sort of statically sitting in your dog to keep it alive long enough for you to get to the vet and get another shot of anti-venom if the dog gets bit. It's pretty rare actually for humans to get bit. Rattlesnakes are the gentlemen of snakes. They make noise before they bite you. So you can usually just back away and it's not a big deal at all. But if you own dogs, you know, dogs are dumb and they go charging after things they shouldn't. And so dogs do get bit a fair bit. So get out there, get the dog's rattlesnake vaccine. So these kind of interactions with wildlife, it's just a little different than what you're used to in the city. It's not dangerous, it's not a big deal. It's actually something that really improves our quality of life. It's something I love about living here. I don't have fences in my yard, so I just watch the deer walk through every day. I actually love seeing the raccoons when they're not stealing my stuff. You just have to be a little bit animal wise and plan ahead. All right, that's enough on wildlife. If you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out. Number 9, you're gonna drive a lot. Now, what's interesting is you may actually spend less time in your car than you do where you live, but you're gonna cover a lot more ground. So traffic really isn't a part of our life. You may have seen one of my other videos where I do talk about, we do have some seasonal traffic and some Tahoe traffic and things like that. But for the most part, your everyday life in El Dorado County and the Placerville area, you're not dealing with traffic. But things are far apart. And really, unless you live right downtown and you can walk to the things in downtown, the rest of the community isn't walkable and it doesn't have a great public transportation infrastructure. So your main way of getting around or getting anything done for you or your kids is driving. So, you know, you're getting up in the morning, you're driving them to school. So there are school buses and some routes have school buses, but some of our schools don't even have a busing system, particularly if you're in like a school of choice, which isn't just in the standard public school system. You might just not even have buses and you're gonna be driving. Luckily, you're not gonna be tearing your hair out or feeling the road rage because you're stuck in traffic. You really just don't deal with the traffic, but you're gonna drive a lot of miles if you're moving up here. Number 10, you see everyone you know everywhere you go. I talk about this one on almost every video I do because I want people to know what you're getting into moving to small town, right? Placerville is a small town. Now, I talk about Placerville a lot. It's our county seat. It's where I live and work. But, you know, you can go to Coloma and Lotus. They're even smaller towns. Diamond Springs, even a smaller town, right? Our only 2 really big towns in the entire county are going to be South Lake Tahoe to the east and El Dorado Hills right at the county line to the west. Everything else is going to be 11,000 people or less. So you tend to know most people in town and you tend to see them everywhere you go. So this means if you're trying to just rush out and do a quick errand and rush back, it just doesn't work out that way. You run into 5 people, you end up in a bunch of conversations, everything takes longer, you're always running late to pick up the kids from school because you ran into this person at the grocery store. It's just how it works here. It also means if you decide that one night to go out in your old torn sweatpants and you know your shirt that you paint the house in and you're just looking scrubby and raggedy, you're gonna see everybody you know. They're all gonna see you in that outfit. You just gotta accept that when you're leaving the house. So again, these aren't pros or cons. It's actually something I love about our community, but it is something you just gotta know if you're moving from a big city where you can be relatively anonymous as you're roaming around town. That's not the same here. You cut somebody off on the freeway here, your phone might ring because they know you. And they're gonna say, hey, why'd you do that, right? So this is a small town. It's something you just gotta get used to. All right, number 11, last one, you better wave to people. Now this sounds ridiculous. Even when I say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous. But I grew up in South San Jose. Nobody waves to anybody unless you know them. And even then, again, you might be just pretending you don't know them because you're getting on with your business and you're not waving. Here, everybody waves. Car goes by, you wave. You're walking your dog, you wave. Someone's walking by, you say hi. When I moved into my neighborhood, there was an older gentleman, he was an awesome guy, this guy Jerry, he's a World War II vet. He lived in the corner house. And I was coming up to do inspections on the house, and I stopped by and I said, hey man, is there anything I need to know about this neighborhood? And he said, you know what, as long as you wave to me on your way in and you wave to me on your way out, everything's gonna be fine. And that's Placerville. Doesn't matter if you know each other or don't know each other. Doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. Everybody has a smile, everybody's friendly, everybody waves. That's just part of the culture here. That's small towns for you. So if you're moving up here, get good at waving. All right, guys, that's it. That's 11 things you should know before moving to El Dorado County. I hope you find that information helpful. I know it's so challenging to relocate to a new community when you know nothing about it, and it's so hard reading articles and looking at pictures to just get a feel for what it's like to live, eat, sleep, work, and play in that community. That's what I do here on the channel. Try to give you all that information about El Dorado County so you can decide if this place is for you. Now again, if this wasn't enough for you and you've got some more questions, or you want to talk through where the best place for your family to land, which small town in our county would be right for you, feel free to send me an email, give me a call. I get reach outs all the time from people just like you who need that information, and I'm happy to help you so you can find the right place for your family. Moving stressful, I'm here to make it easier for you. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.